You're sitting by a fire. It's been 3 days since the hunting party came back, and one of them didn't. He was 22, maybe 23. He slipped near a river in the dark, and rather than leave him, they carried the body home for 2 full days. Now there's a pile of stones at the edge of camp. You haven't eaten much. You're not talking. Nothing physical is wrong with you, but something is. The question almost nobody thinks to ask: did ancient humans get depressed? The answer, based on brain science, evolutionary biology, and the archaeological record, is yes. The more interesting question is why the brain built this system, and what protected ancient humans from the version of it that now affects 280 million people worldwide. Let's start with the evidence that ancient humans felt things deeply enough to act on those feelings. In 2015, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger and his team at the University of the Witwatersrand discovered something in Rising Star Cave, South Africa, that nobody expected. Deep inside the cave system, through a passage 18 centimeters wide, they found the bones of Homo naledi, a human ancestor with a brain 1/3 the size of yours. These bones were deliberately placed there, not dragged by predators, not washed in by floods. Deliberately carried into the darkness around 300,000 years ago by something with a brain 1/3 the size of yours that made a decision to bring its dead somewhere specific. Then there's Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq. In the 1950s and 60s, archaeologist Ralph Selecki excavated a Neanderthal burial site dating to around 60,000 years ago. One skeleton, Shanidar 1, had a healed arm fracture, was blind in one eye, and had severe arthritis throughout his body. He lived to roughly 40 years old, which was old for that era and that environment. His group fed him, protected him, kept him alive for years when he could contribute almost nothing to the hunt. Another skeleton at the same site was buried surrounded by pollen from at least 8 species of wildflowers. Someone gathered those flowers deliberately. Grief, care, ritual. These are not inventions of civilization. The brain chemistry behind depression is older than any of this. Serotonin, the neurotransmitter most closely linked to mood regulation, exists in organisms over 600 million years old. Sea snails have serotonin. So do flatworms. The basic chemistry that makes depression biochemically possible has been running in nervous systems since before vertebrates existed. Your brain did not invent this system. It inherited it from something that lived in an ancient ocean. In 2009, evolutionary psychologists Paul Andrews and J. Anderson Thompson published a paper called The Bright Side of Being Blue. Their argument: depression is a feature, not a malfunction. When something genuinely serious happens, the brain enters a state of sustained internal processing. Appetite drops. Social engagement pulls back. Energy redirects away from physical activity and toward concentrated mental analysis. Andrews and Thompson called this analytical rumination. The hypothesis: this system evolved to force the organism to stop everything else and work through a serious problem. A death in the group, a failed alliance, a loss of social standing that threatened access to food and safety. The brain treats these as emergencies requiring full cognitive attention. A separate hypothesis from anthropologist Edward Hagen at Washington State University adds another layer. Depression also served as a social signal. A visible, sustained withdrawal from normal group activities communicated to everyone around you that something had gone seriously wrong and that the group needed to respond. In bands of 20 to 50 people, where survival was collective, that signal had real leverage. People didn't ignore it. They couldn't. You were sleeping 10 feet away from each other. So what might this actually have looked like 50,000 years ago? Someone comes back from a failed hunt with empty hands, or loses a child, or gets publicly called out for taking more than their share of food, a serious transgression in a group where equality was survival. They go quiet. They sleep more than usual. They stop volunteering for group tasks. The brain is doing something deliberate, pulling away from the external world to devote full cognitive resources to the problem at hand. Among the Hadza of Tanzania, anthropologists documented that when someone in the band was visibly struggling, others shifted responsibilities without being asked. They brought food directly. They sat closer at night. Children were sent to play near the person, not away from them. The withdrawal triggered a social response that the withdrawal itself was designed to elicit. This does not mean ancient depression was comfortable or brief. It means it had a built-in mechanism for resolution that modern life systematically dismantled. Ancient life had one thing that modern life mostly lacks. When someone in a band of 50 people went quiet and withdrawn, everyone noticed within hours. There was no apartment to disappear into. The group converged. They brought food. They sat close. They talked. George Brown, a British sociologist who studied depression across the 20th century, found that one variable predicted recovery more reliably than almost anything else: having a single, close confidant who showed genuine, consistent support. Ancient humans had one close confidant. They had 40. About 10,000 years ago, agriculture reorganized human life faster than the brain could adapt. Populations grew. People started living near strangers instead of kin. Physical labor became repetitive and indoor. Sleep shifted from the natural biphasic pattern into a single compressed block. Sunlight exposure dropped. Physical movement dropped. Diet narrowed from dozens of wild species to a grain-heavy monotony. The tight social web of the hunter-gatherer band got replaced by something larger, more anonymous, and much easier to fall through unnoticed. Stephen Ilardi, a clinical psychologist at the University of Kansas, spent years comparing depression rates across traditional and industrialized societies. His research, published in 2009 in The Depression Cure, found that the modern lifestyle is profoundly mismatched with what the brain was built to run on. His list of what the brain actually needs reads like a description of hunter-gatherer daily life. Regular, vigorous physical movement. A diet rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Direct sunlight exposure. Meaningful face-to-face social contact. Sufficient sleep, and a sense that your actions matter to the people around you. Ancient humans had all of these by default. Modern humans have to deliberately construct them. Ancient humans were not protected from grief or loss or despair. The burials in Rising Star Cave, the care given to Shanidar I, the wildflowers placed with the dead in northern Iraq, these tell you that emotional suffering is as old as our species. But the chronic, prolonged, isolated version of depression, the kind that runs for months or years with no social response, no physical relief, no change in circumstances, required very specific modern conditions to become widespread. The brain that can be pulled into depression is the same brain that carried bodies through narrow cave passages 300,000 years ago. It's the same brain that sat around a fire for 6 hours telling stories about the people who were gone. It built this system for a world where suffering was visible, where the people around you responded within hours, where the problem had a human face and a human answer. The world changed, the brain didn't, and the distance between those two things is where modern depression lives.